Bitcoin wants to break out, ladies and gents. It is now sitting back up at this $117,000 resistance. We've hit this resistance level now 3 times in the last 4 days. So it's definitely not looking like this resistance level is super, super strong, because, of course, if it was strong, you would see a rejection that looks a little bit more like this, right? You'd see a much bigger, much clearer rejection taking the market lower. But on this occasion, we're not getting that. The market has only been able to produce in total a 2% drop. And by the way, at that, it only took 3 days, right? So not even a particularly long time frame rejection that we're seeing here. And I think it's all the more important because we did produce this pattern coming out of a parallel channel here. So look, we're nowhere near, confirmation to be able to say that we've actually broken out and that this is a legitimate kind of price move that's going to stick in the market. It's too early to call for that right now. But it's like I've been saying over the past couple of weeks, right? Like, if you're a bear in these markets, you are not being given more ammunition to believe in your hypothesis. Everything the market has been doing over the last weeks, over the last months, basically since Trump got elected, has weakened the argument for bears. And I think that's really important. I'm talking about a macro scale, right? Because it's literally tomorrow that we're going to get the Fed rate cuts, if it's even going to happen, because nothing is guaranteed. And things might change around these kind of volatile news events. I actually think we may have priced it in already, but that's a different topic for a different video. Smash up the likes if you want to hear me talk about that. Of course, I'd have to make that video more or less now, so definitely let me know in the comments if that would be interesting. But I think we've been getting less and less signs to kind of maintain a bearish posture right now in these markets, and I'm seeing that with what Bitcoin is doing right now, right? I mean, the S&P 500 moved up and Bitcoin didn't. Bitcoin actually dipped over the yesterday and whatever. And I think, that obviously would have, kind of been a little bit annoying. But, it's like I said in that video, this is the kind of thing that's, more of a fluctuation. It's going to, there's going to be a natural kind of degree of floating up and down. And I don't think that really says much about Bitcoin's strength or weakness or lack thereof of either of those two things. So what I actually think we're seeing here, ladies and gents, is, it's another attempt at this resistance level while the stock market is still looking super healthy, right? The fact that the S&P 500 shot up to these all-time highs and is now steady at this level for the second day this week is a good sign. Now, could this all crumble after the rate cut? Potentially, right? It could be a sell the news event, but like I said, I'm not super convinced by those narratives. I think that Bitcoin itself is looking like it's in really, really good posture right now. If this doesn't work out for Bitcoin, then we're probably looking at a drop down to about $112,000, and that's going to be, a pretty useful zone of support, I think, for Bitcoin to potentially get that bounce and then subsequently attack 117K again. However, if we lose this level, then we've basically set a new kind of macro lower high, which would be really bearish. That would be pretty bad, and that would probably indicate that we're going to drop substantially lower into even the $90,000 price range, which, as you know, I would welcome that. That will still create a very healthy correction for Bitcoin. It doesn't put us in scary territory at all. You might be scared, but that makes you stupid, so you could do what you want. The bottom line is Bitcoin's very, very volatile, and you would be stupid if you enter this game and you can't weather 30% moves, even 40% moves, even in crypto. Yeah, I know that it sounds crazy, but, if you're not okay with that, then crypto's not for you, mate. Jog on. But if you do have that appetite, if you do have that psychotic tendency to be okay with these things in the market, good for you. It would probably put Bitcoin in a very, very good place. However, I don't think we've got the setup for that, right? We've got the S&P 500 looking so incredibly strong and Bitcoin following that strength. If we don't see traditional finance take a shit, I don't think Bitcoin will, right? I've been saying that for a very, very long time. I'm constantly being proven correct in this market, and I think that's what we're lining up to do right here. If these resistance attempts become a little bit more frequent, or if we're able to hold steady at this level that we're at right now, I think it's entirely likely that even within the next kind of 24, 48 hours, Bitcoin is able to break out and get above this 117K range back toward 120, which will put it in a really nice kind of consolidation pattern to blow up. And all of this is happening with Bitcoin's dominance just kind of cooling off for a a second here. So this is really interesting. If Bitcoin does, kind of continue to cool off where it is right now, that might give dominance a chance to actually get that rejection off this upward sloping resistance line here, and that could be very interesting for alt plays. However, Bitcoin is looking like it's stealing that limelight a little bit, so we could see it shoot up if Bitcoin doesn't stay steady, but instead if Bitcoin does pump up. In both cases, though, I think alts are still looking super bullish, and I'm not worried about them. I think Bitcoin is looking super bullish, and I'm not worried about Bitcoin. And I do think that all creates a very, very interesting setup for trades here. Now, I do want to highlight something very, very cool. I touched on it briefly in the last video, and it is about Bybit's TWAP strategy and iceberg order strategy. This is a really cool set of features that those of you who are a little bit more like whales are going to be interested in, where you've got the ability essentially to mask your orders as they enter the market, right? So what happens when you're trading with a large amount of money is there's going to be a shitload of bots, real traders, algorithms of all types that are scanning the market and looking at the orders that go into the market. I've had this happen to me way more often than I'm happy about, and it's also happened to many of you guys. It's just a thing that happens in crypto. It's been going on for a long time, and these problems get much worse when you trade with large amounts of money. I'm talking over 100k, over $1 million, especially before leverage is applied, and it depends on the market too. Now, what iceberg and TWAP are, which is really, really cool, is they're two different ways to still send large orders into the market, but without spooking the market as much. It's not perfect. None of these things are going to be perfect. You're still throwing money into the market, but the iceberg order will essentially split your order up, right? So let's say you want to throw 10 Bitcoin into a trade. It'll allow you to do 0.2 Bitcoin segments continuously. When the first 0.2 Bitcoin segment gets filled, the next one gets thrown into the market as an active order, and it keeps going until your order's executed. And the TWAP strategy is the exact same thing, but instead of breaking it down in terms of 5% segments of your total position, you can break it down or I guess that was like 0.5%. You can break it down into time, right? So every 30 seconds you put another order in, and so on and so forth. So really quite an incredible feature set, well worth checking out on Bybit. They do offer this with the most customization and features in the space right now. So if that is something you think you'd be interested in, that link in the description is not only going to take you to where you can use these, and by the way, it's so easy to use these, right? It's just where you fill out your normal orders, both for TWAP and iceberg. It's the same user interface that you're already very familiar with. By the way, like all exchanges pretty much look like this these days. And so if that's something that you think you're interested in, you get a 30k bonus on top of that as well for free trading capital that you can trade with when you start trading using that link. So check that out if you're not from a restricted region as well. Obviously, Levex a great alternative, but Bybit does by far remain the best in the game. So yeah, really, really cool if you're not from any restricted regions here. Let's bring it back to the video though. Speaking of, how this market is kind of heating up for trades, if this thing does end up popping to the upside, and then more importantly, we get the pop over here above 120, that's going to be pretty much that all-time high rally, right? Like this thing could run quite far. Obviously, it's had a pretty decent pullback now, which is only, I believe, going to give it even more jet fuel to just absolutely just send. And I think, 130, 140k, pardon me, 130 to 140k has been, the key level that I'm watching, for quite some time. It's been the key level that I've been interested in for a very long time now in this market, and that is purely because those levels are pointed to from many different tools that give us extrapolated price targets for where Bitcoin can go. It also sounds very conceivable. It just sounds, something that's very easy to digest, that, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. The previous all-time high was 112k, and then we managed to pass that by $12,000. So if we do that again, that puts us at exactly $136,000, which I think is a very realistic price target for Bitcoin to end up hitting. And again, especially with that blessing of traditional finance, I want to be very clear with you guys, ladies and gents. When traditional finance or the bigger forces at play, whatever you want to call them, are looking good, that's going to affect Bitcoin very directly, because there's not going to be as much selling volume in the market because, just broadly speaking, markets are fairly optimistic. And secondly, it's going to mean as a result of less selling pressure, there's going to be some level of residual demand, and these prices will skyrocket without really applying much buying pressure to them. It's only because there's nobody interested in selling. And a lot of this is going to be handled by the same money that's in traditional finance. That's the most important thing we need to understand. A lot of us still just analyze crypto or still just analyze Bitcoin, and I hark on about this all the time because it's so important. We're not just analyzing Bitcoin anymore. right? It's not just, Bitcoin fucking basement investment money, that moves this market anymore. It's bigger players, it's players that are well cemented and entrenched inside of traditional finance markets that also move Bitcoin now, and that's why we see such a clear correlation with what's going on in the market. So how does that translate for Bitcoin? Well, look, if this incredible strength stays, if this thing even continues going higher, if, like I'm saying, the Fed news becomes kind of priced in, whether or not there is a base cut, and obviously it looks overwhelmingly likely that there will be a rate cut there, whether or not, because I think that we've already kind of priced in a lot of that, we've had a lot of consolidation, we've ran up in a pretty mediocre way, to be honest. I mean, look at the chart. It's in front of you. We're not doing anything unusual. If you weren't really paying attention to the news, it wouldn't look like anything crazy. It's just a standard kind of S&P 500 movement. This is really our staircase to heaven. And if the S&P 500 can keep this posture, it certainly looks like Bitcoin does want to get that breakout and reach for some of them higher targets, which would be very, very fun indeed. So lots of cool stuff to come. Let's take a quick look at some of the altcoins. Solana, BTC, creeping up a little bit, but honestly, it looks like it might want to continue downwards. Cardano, BTC, just still at those lows that we described before, nothing crazy. XRP, still pretty steady where it is. Ethereum seeing a little bit of a pullback off that key Bitcoin resistance level, but again, nothing too crazy. Take note, by the way, I'm not looking at USD charts of any of these coins. A lot of you guys do look at USD charts of these coins, and that's because you want to trade them that way, and good for you if that's the case. But the bottom line, ladies and gents, is that I'm in this game for Bitcoin. I want to make Bitcoin, so everything that I can possibly do with my money will be evaluated against the idea of just holding Bitcoin. If I'm asking the question, will this coin make me more money than Bitcoin, and the answer is no, then I don't want it. Any other coin will give me more risk and less reward, and I'm not interested in that. That is gambling, and I don't want to gamble in this space. So that's why when I'm looking at all of these altcoins, the first and usually only thing I'll do is look at the Bitcoin chart, because the USD chart is definitely secondary. It's noise. It's not important. You can look at those things when you want, entries or more kind of intricate analysis, but, when it's just about kind of evaluating how a coin is doing, I don't think there's any use in looking anything further than their Bitcoin pairs. But there you go, ladies and gents. Another fairly quick video. Smash up those likes, subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff if you did enjoy this one. Check out 𝐂𝐿𝐷 & Brown for OTC buying and selling worldwide. These guys are absolutely great. They cater to all volumes, which is really, really cool. And if you want to get inside of our exclusive program, it's a one-to-one coaching program. It lasts 12 weeks. We've had only incredible results out of that program. You can reach out with this link in the description down below, and a member of the team will get back to you. Really hope you've enjoyed this one. You know what to do if you have. Smash up the like, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that good stuff, and we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.